Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and today I'll be guiding our discussion. Well, folks, I hope you're having a fantastic day and an even better week. Today, we're going to kick back, I should say kick back, we're going to kick off the beginning of this particular week with a little reflection back on the premise of protecting love. I know, before you click off, just hold on. And as we often do, we jump in from an organizational perspective because that's so often where we congregate, right? Where we come together as teams, as larger groups, not even always large groups, but at least group size, right? And to even very large groups, right? And this ripples outward, right? Into our communities, into the rest of culture, into our families, into our own lives. And this is why we talk about some of these things because everything is connected, folks. There is no separation. We are, and we should be, the same person in our, say, our working life as we are in our home life. Now, it doesn't mean that we're not more, kind and caring for our children, and that sort of thing. That's a different. That's a bit different, right? That's a familial love, right? But irrespective of that, the core of who you are, the essence, the goodness that resides within you should be just as strong in your organizational life as it is in your home and in the broader culture, right? But let's talk a little bit about protecting love. We can talk about protecting love from many different aspects. When we do talk about protecting love in an organization, we can say, well, the main question is, why and how, right? The two main questions. Why and how? We already have the where. The where is pretty much everywhere, right? But why? Why protect love? Why protect love? Think about that. This is like the workbook, part of the workbook where we ask the question and we sit and ponder that. Why protect love? We protect love because when we protect love, right, not only for ourselves, but for others, then what? We allow growth to occur. Growth occurs in the environment of love, right? Go out and grow a garden, grow anything, right? And I won't claim to have the greenest thumb on the planet. I'm fortunate if I can get something to grow. I understand the concept though. My grandfather was a farmer, one of them, and he had some orchards and gardens and the whole nine, right? He grew peaches, he had plums, he had it all. It was a bit of a Garden of Eden on his property, and and the work and the toil that he put into that, the irrigation and all the things, right, to take care of it, and then when harvest essentially comes, and the whole process, right, and then I saw as he gave so much away as well, right. Now think of that, folks. All of that happens in the environment of love. You don't grow, right, a thing, say peaches, for example. You don't grow those unless you love peaches, right? So to protect love means doing the things that is going to grow the things that we also love, right? So it becomes this perpetual loop, really, if you think about it. Oftentimes, we're not going to protect things that we don't love, right? And this is the challenge because oftentimes what you will see is division within culture, right? You see it different organizations, in unhealthy competition, people within an organization, right, or on any team, doesn't matter the size, with certain division, right, a certain level of competition, whether it's to get noticed or what do they call that, or they're clout chasing, whatever, right? You see all of these angles, and what is it? Everybody fighting to survive, and and instead of seeing this overarching theme of protecting love in everyone's life, not just your own, right? Because that creates that environment, that biosphere that allows growth to occur. You create division, and what are you doing? You're starving the growth, right? So it would be like starving that uh, peach orchard of water or sunlight or air, or and so on, all the nutrients, right? The the fertilizer and so forth, right? So the nutrients within the soil and all of that. So this is the thing we have to consider. We can look at our natural world. We can also look at this in the animal kingdom and see where these things are occurring. The difference in the natural world, in say the natural world, in the animal kingdom, is that it becomes predator versus prey. Now this gets tricky because if individuals have a predator versus prey approach to the world, I've got to get mine, right? I've got to secure, you know, uh, I'm just going to try to water this down because I don't want to get everybody all, heads are spinning and stomachs are churning. But I've got to find my protein source. Everyone else be damned. Predator versus prey. And I don't care what or that prey is. I've got to find it. So from that perspective, animal kingdom isn't really about protecting love except at the local level within its own species, right? So now we come back to us as one humanity and you go, okay, if it's true for a species of particular animal, right? We'll say the cat, uh, large to small cats. We'll just say the cat side of the house, right? They they're protecting love for themselves, right? But look at us as human beings, and we within our own humanity are dividing and subdividing what we prioritize as important or worthy of protecting love, right? Which is essentially taking a backward approach to a predator versus prey approach to living. I only get ahead if I step on the other person or person's ability to grow and thrive. So therefore, I'm going to overtly or covertly crush them, right? And then, ring the chime. Then you hear the chorus of narcissists and sociopaths, trickling around in the background. The predators looking for the prey. They're looking for high empaths, people that they can manipulate and so on and so forth, right? Definitely a predator within the fold, right? So now, with that in mind, you say, okay, well, if I'm here to protect love, well, I'm not going to protect love in an environment where my love's not being protected. Again, then the subtlety of that predator versus prey mentality settles into your psyche, right? It settles into your gut. And now you could justify and make anything okay, right? You could justify and make anything okay to ensure that what? I get mine. I get mine, and that's all that matters to me. My safety. And a lot of this, folks, stems right back to fear, as all the difficulties in life do, really, right? I don't have enough. I'm not getting enough attention. There isn't enough this. I'm lacking here. It's a lack mindset, right? Wrapped around fear axle, right? and which drives that predator desire within a human being to go out there and seek out prey, whether it's for monetary gain, whether it's for advantage, organizationally within the working world and the competitive market forces and so forth and so on, right? So you see how, you can look at it peeling the onion in, or you look at it from its core and work your way out. And you see that this predator versus prey aspect to us thwarts our ability to protect love, right? Because we put borders on it, we put division on it, we put boxes on it, we put people in those boxes, we put bubbles around it, we put circles around those. We've got more electric fences of fear around our lives that we can't even see straight, right? So I come back to the premise. What if our one mandate is to protect love, right? This unlocks everything. If you're here to protect love, you're what? You're giving, you're more kind, you're more collaborative, you're more innovative, right? You're more empathetical, you're more understanding, but you can also see where this isn't the case, right? Because you can't unsee it once this clicks in your mind and in your heart, you can't really unsee this. You can't unsee it in yourself. And we can look back across the landscape of our own lives. None of us have failed to make a mistake in this regard. We all have made mistakes. We have all gone down a road that we thought was, okay, this is a good road. Oh, not a good road, right? And we've all made mistakes, folks, but we can't live and torture ourselves through every past mistake. But what we can do is look forward and say, how can I protect love in every interaction? Well, somebody says something that I'm pretty confident is inaccurate. Now, I could argue to the ground with them about how inaccurate it is and why and da-da-da-da-da. Take a beat, take a pause, hear out the rest of it. What is your response? Are you reacting or are you responding? If you're reacting, what's reacting when somebody's inaccurate or something's off or whatever? What's reacting is control, which also is a fear-based element to your life, right? It becomes a challenge to your life. So you're reacting, base level of fear, to control. What? To be right, to be correct. I want to be seen as the one who's correct. Now, this is a slippery slope because we do want to be correct and we want to be accurate when we're communicating and all of that. But we have to understand where it's coming from. Is it coming from a desire to collaborate, innovate, and draw folks together? Or is it to say, oh no, this is what it is, to put people in their place, so to speak, in that one interaction? You can polarize an entire room. You can polarize an audience. You can polarize anyone, essentially, right? And if animals run from you, if kind-hearted people run from you, this is a good indicator. Okay, so in protecting love, we go back to that premise again. Yes, it's fine to protect love in your own life, and sometimes, we do have to understand that protect love is to put up boundaries for those who aren't. But boundaries for those who aren't doesn't mean that we don't love, right? Have love for them and for their plight and for their journey. They're just at a different place in their journey, or they're completely not on a journey, right, to do that, in which case you don't want that. Now, that's different, folks, than me putting up a wall and a boundary. There's a boundary to protect love within your life and within your culture and circle and all that, right? That's fine, right? Because as long as it's not fear-based, and this is tough. This is one of those, you just don't wake up every day, decide this, and then you're on automatic pilot. This is kind of a heart work on a daily basis. You have to understand that you're going to have interactions. I've had, kind-hearted to, most all people all the time. But every once in a while, I'll get caught off guard. That random stranger that approaches me, that, the energy hits me sideways, and I'm not sure if this is somebody who sees me as prey, right? Or if this is somebody who's, you don't know if this is a predator or if this is somebody who's a collaborator, right? If this is somebody who understands the concept of protecting love in one's life or anybody's life. Because when you protect love in your own life and the lives of others, you don't what? You don't encroach on their boundaries. You don't encroach into their world. You don't inject yourself into their space. You don't become a Molotov cocktail flying into their circle, right? You collaborate. You want to build together. And those who don't, because some folks are going to be a little more sensitive than others, and that's perfectly fine. Because again, we're on different trajectories. We're in different places on our journey. And part of protecting love is to understand this. You can't also want to protect love and and not have the desire to intellectualize it to the point where you can understand and see the map of this, right? So you might see your life within your particular circle and so forth. And I'm not saying that to create a boundary, but just to explain within your circle, right? But you ultimately don't want a hard, inescapable wall there that disallows you from being able to interact with folks, right? To build, collaborate, because there's good people all over the place. And again, on different journeys. But not all of us, even when we're trying to do the right and good thing, are necessarily focused on protecting love. Because what? Protecting love means protecting the sovereignty of all of us to be able to protect love within our own lives, right? And then the circle that we happen to be operating in. It could be your family, your friends, your community, all, whatever circle we're talking about, right? Ultimately, your ideal would be to have a perfect alignment with those circles. So, you know how when you go get your eyes checked and, hey, 1 or 2, 3 or 4, that whole bit. And you can just imagine that all these lenses are, on this dial and stuff. Well, imagine bringing all the lenses into one alignment for absolute clarity. This is what we're talking about. You don't want circles. You don't want 1,000 circles in your world. Well, I'm this way with this group of friends. I'm that way. You don't want that. Now, when we start out in life, we kind of do that, right? We kind of gravitate. And I think back to high school. The athletes gravitated to the athletes and the da-da-da to the da-da-da and, all the things. I tended to be one that kind of, visited with everybody and whatever. I was an athlete primarily, but I had interests in multiple areas. Can you tell? and a thirst for knowledge and interaction. So I didn't just, sit in a corner and in a comfortable corner. And this is another aspect of protecting love. Sometimes you have to take a risk. If there's somebody in your life that you want to express, hey, how you feel about them, you express it. If it's not returned, that's fine. They know how you feel. You move on. Hey, I really respect what you do. I like the work you're doing. Great. They may not give a crap about the work you're doing or what you're doing at all. But at least you've expressed yourself. Don't feel like that there has to be a reciprocation, because you're protecting love in your own life by being you're honoring your own vulnerability by doing that. But you're also showing others that being vulnerable is okay, to express themselves about how they feel or how they don't feel, right? Because it could be that somebody says, well, I like some of your work, but don't like all of it. Oh, okay, well, that's honest, right? And that's what you want. You want honesty in the end. You want an honesty in the end. Because why? Because that honesty goes, okay, well, further. Want to know more? Because if you're an artist, you want to know what doesn't appeal to you, because it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to cater your art necessarily to that person, but you want to have a better insight. Because why? You want to be able to grow. You want to grow. A person who wants to grow thirsts and desires feedback, right? A person who wants to grow is not going to grow well in a dark room, right, with no light, right? It's like a plant. It's just not going to happen, folks. And it's not going to happen for us either. So don't want this video to go too long, but keep in mind, protecting love, if you put that at the center of your thoughts, words, and actions, what you're going to find is that what you think, what you say, and what you do then perpetuates that, right? And then by protecting love in others' lives, there is accountability, there is honor, there's a respect that is inherent to that whole philosophy. So all of these things go together. Can you respect everyone? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Can you respect everyone? You don't have to like everyone. You have to love everyone necessarily, and, oh my gosh, I love everyone. Now, if you're that person, then you're way ahead of the curve, right? And that's the trajectory you want to be on. But But not everybody is on that trajectory. Not everybody's there. All of us are at a different place in our journey. Some people are just figuring it out. Some people are pulling themselves out of the muck and mire and mud and quicksand of trauma and all these other things that they've had and issues they've gone through. They won't be able to get onto that trajectory until they can absolutely love and forgive people in their lives that have potentially done them wrong and seen the lesson for what it is. Having gone through that, are you a better person? Right? If you can't grow to be a loving human that you can possibly be, doesn't mean you have to have them in your life. Doesn't mean you have to be like, oh, I love you. But it does mean that you have to put it in this proper perspective, right? That person was broken. You may have come together with a broken person in your organization. You may have hired a person who was, struggling in their last organization. And because you didn't go through the process well enough, you what? You hired somebody in who wasn't going to be of value, an alignment, right, to your organization. And then you may have found this out and then you've learned the lesson and you moved on. Now, do you hate that person or do you go, you know what? I need to have better hiring standards. I need to have better, I need to ask better questions during the interview process. I need to ask more important questions. I don't care how fast you can type, right? Do you understand what emotional codependence is? If a person has no clue about all that, then you're going to figure out pretty quickly that this leader, potentially in your organization, doesn't understand people, doesn't understand the core drivers, doesn't understand this fear-based and lack element to culture in general, doesn't understand that people hide in their silos because of why? Because of fear, right? Fear of being judged, fear of this, fear of that, all the fears. Because why? They don't necessarily believe the organization will protect love. They don't believe that people in organizations, potentially leadership, will protect love. And you don't help your case any better if you're an organizational leader or owner. If you're constantly hiring, firing tons of people all the time, you're essentially proving that not protecting love absolutely gives you the results that you want. And it's not great performance, not great quality, not great productivity on every level, right? And on top of that, it sours your organizational culture. You're doing it to yourself. Ultimately, everything we've done to ourselves, folks, and we have to honor and own that too. To protect love is also to be honest with ourselves. And sometimes it's not fun. It's a bitter pill to swallow. But sometimes we have to swallow it and say, you know what? I'm here because of a choice I made, right? All right, folks. That'll be it for today. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Remember, hit that good green domino 3 to 5 times a day or more to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage folks. When we do that, not only helping to improve culture, but we're improving our own lives as well. And we can't transform anything outside of us if we're not willing to transform things on the inside of us, right? That includes our perspectives. That includes being able to see things for what they are. All right, folks, have a fantastic day. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.